If you take an orc baby and you put it in an elven city, does the orc baby stop being corrupt?
Ooh, good question. Oh man, nature versus nurture, maybe. Oh god. Hello and welcome to May the Review Be With You with Nick and Joe. I'm Joe.
Nick?
And today we are talking about the first 4 episodes of Season 2, Rings of Power. We are back in Tolkien's land in Lord of the Rings, and we got 4 episodes from Amazon, which is pretty cool, depending on how you look at it. If you're me and Nick, we're kind of mad about it. We want 1 episode a week. Is that really so much to ask for?
Yeah, I don't know. I was complaining when I found out it was the first 3 in one day because we really like to be able to talk about it online weekly. But after watching the first 3 episodes, it kind of made some sense because they really spent a lot of time with like each group. And those episodes are really like informative and detailed. So I didn't hate it after that. And now we're out on a weekly time span. So I think it's going to be okay. We're hanging in there.
In general, I feel like it's just better. It's better even if it has nothing to do with content, right? Like you get to digest it.
Yep.
You might want to watch it again
Right.
before the next episode. Like there's just so much more to
Yeah.
it other than the immediate satisfaction of watching all of it all at once, and then like the internet forgets about it after 3 days.
Yep.
And we all move on.
Agreed.
Right? Like
Agreed. Yeah, I only got to rewatch like 1.5 of the first 4 episodes. I really wanted to rewatch all 4. I was like, there's just no time. So that's how it goes.
especially with a show like Rings of Power, where every episode is kind of like its own mini movie.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that being said, Nick, so we got 4 episodes. Like we said, Elven Kings Under the Sky, Where the Stars Are Strange, The Eagle and the Scepter, and my favorite of the 4, Eldest. So, this is a lot to break down, like we just said. So I think we're going to break this down into 3 different categories. We're going to break down into what we really liked about these episodes, what we didn't care for, and then finally what our expectations are moving ahead this season. So, Nick, I'm going to put the ball in your court here. What is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Season 2, episodes 1 through 4?
So the first thing is tough. The first thing that comes to mind though is pacing wise, it's a lot quicker. It feels a lot quicker. It feels like there's a lot more going on. There is also a lot more, I guess, detail in the story so far, and it doesn't feel like they're setting anything up anymore, right? Like the first season is a little bit more slow at times, which was okay. I really enjoyed season 1, but it was a little slower at times. Felt like they were really just like gearing up towards what comes next. And that's really like this second season. And so what stands out to me is just like some quick things about how manipulative Sauron is, or Halbrand, however you want to refer to him, how manipulative he is to get his way and to get these rings made. Knows exactly how to manipulate like each section of people, to agree to make these rings, which will, ultimately be all of their downfalls and leads to this, 1,000-year conflict. And so that's like super interesting. Some other things that stand out are just the set design, and also, of course, there's a ton of CGI. But for me, I don't care about that because it looks so cool and so like magical in this world that Tolkien has built, that I really enjoy looking and discovering like all these different places in Middle Earth, and so those are some things that really kind of stand out to me.
I feel that. Numenor in particular, it looks really great.
Yeah.
Although I feel like whenever I see the elves and we get a cut to Numenor, I'm like, why does Numenor look so much better than where all the elves live? I feel like that should never be the case.
Right.
Like they kind of outdid themselves with Numenor.
Right. But to your point, I wonder if that's by design, right? Because in Lord of the Rings, where the elves live, are like really incredible looking, some of these places, right? And in Rings of Power, they just got their power back essentially with these rings. So I wonder if there's something to it. You can speak more to that probably on Lord of the Rings lore. If there's any kind of like background on, oh, well, even though Sauron is back, they did get their power back still, and they used it to live well during the.
So yeah, that's actually something I really love about what they're doing with the Rings of Power show as compared to like the way the rings are described in the movies. Like, there's really not a lot of mention or lore in the movies of what the rings actually do. And I think the One Ring actually makes it a little confusing itself, because I think if you ask like most people who haven't like read the books at all, like what does the ring do, they would tell you, oh yeah, it's like it's power, and I guess it turns you invisible. And like that's not what it actually does. The Ring of Power is like the ultimate amplification of power, right? So like whoever like wields it, it's going to operate differently per person. The only reason why it made the hobbits invisible is because like hobbits are very good at like blending in with their surroundings and not being, if they want to go unnoticed by people, they will go unnoticed by people. So the ultimate amplification of that is obviously invisibility. It's only sort of invisibility. Like he's not invisible. He's just in like the shadow realm, right? Like it's weird. And the movies don't really like get into it, which like I get it. I get why they don't get into it, but like
that's a great explanation.
It's a little misleading.
That's a great explanation. So like I love the movies, but I've not done as much work on the books, and so that detail right there is so good. That's like such a good detail especially for people who have never read the books, which is a lot of people.
Yeah, and we sort of get an example of that in Rings of Power too. So the ring that Galadriel has, she says, it gives her visions of the future, and she tells Elrond, I used to be able to like feel these things, but now with this ring, like I actually see them. So it enhances like her ability of premonition, right?
So so like those premonitions aren't really necessarily Sauron putting things in her head. Those are just real. In many ways, it could be just more of an amplification of what her power already is. So, like, these things could very well happen, essentially.
I think there's a chance we may find out that Sauron is playing some sort of role in the vision she's getting, but that is what is supposed to be happening.
Right.
It's enhancing her precog state.
Got it.
I think it will remain that way, and we'll find out that the gifts like sour the land in other ways, right? Because like it's ultimately corruption, right.
Well, but to that point, he didn't touch those rings for the elves, right? I don't think he had a hand in making them, but he never actually touched the rings. Whereas he straight up touches the dwarf ring and he throws it in. I'm like, oh no wonder they got like the worst of it all.
Dude, right? Like we actually still haven't even seen the Belrog again, and we know it's just chilling under there. It's waiting, it's biding its time.
Yeah. So
can't wait to see it.
Yeah, man.
You mentioned Hellbrand, Sauron before. So this show starts with Sauron.
Yeah.
The very first scene is an old iteration of Sauron with Adar. And the orcs, and they're actually in that frozen castle that we see Galadriel scale up to in season 1. And this is the area where she originally sees the mark of Sauron, and she's convinced something happened here. This is the something that happened,
right?
And it's Sauron actually being betrayed and getting backstabbed by Andar, and we get to watch his fun little cross-country road trip. As he deletes and eats and ensnares different life forms.
Yeah. Until he finally reaches his final form, like basically Cell. He's like Cell from Dragon Ball Z.
Right. It kind of reminded me a lot of the symbiote from Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's
the Venom symbiote.
Yeah, he's a mixture of the symbiote, of Cell, and of that Pokemon. I forget what the name is, Kruk or whatever, or whatever.
Oh, Muk.
Muk, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of like Muk.
So he's just as
beloved.
Yeah, he's a mixture of all three of those things until he finally reaches his final form, which is Hellbrand. So I also thought it was really cool. Like they gave us that journey, right, of how he went from, dying as Sauron and then coming back to life and then claiming the Southlands and making himself Hellbound. But it was cool how they showed us how he got the trinket, the necklace.
Yeah, that was neat. I wish we had like a whole episode dedicated to that, just called like Sauron: An Unexpected Journey.
Yeah,
that would have been nice.
And dude, like that old
Start
man
from small beginnings.
Yeah, that old man that he encounters, like, there are moments where I was like, wait, is Sauron actually thinking about just being good in some of these moments? And then the old man says something right before like the ship gets wrecked, where Sauron's talking to him, and he's like, "What if I was good today, but what about tomorrow or whatever?" And the old man is just like, "You have to choose to be good tomorrow too. You have to choose to be good every day or whatever." And in that moment, I think the ship just gets wrecked, and I'm like, Sauron decided that it was too difficult to be a good human being. It was like, you know what? Now my original plan stands. This is you're all about to die.
That way is way better.
Yeah, that was a weird scene too, right? Because like he's aware that serpent is about to attack,
Right.
and he tells the guy, find something to hold,
Right.
So it almost seems like he cares about his survival, but then like as soon as the old man is pinned down, he's like, "Mine," and just like yoinks the necklace away.
Right. So weird. Like he's just conniving and manipulative. Of course, this is like a great example. So, yeah.
I am enjoying that because I mean, if I went back into season 1, maybe I could see like how he's playing Galadriel,
Right.
But I feel like because they were playing his cards like so close, like we didn't get to see him be like the cunning manipulator that we know he is.
Yeah, like if you go back and watch season 1, you can see it a little bit more, but that's because you kind of know it's coming. But now it's like full on, no, like manipulate.
Yeah, no holds bar.
Just no hold bar. Like he's playing them all like a fiddle. Crazy.
Yeah, very much so. And it's, I think half the fun for me this season has just been watching Sauron be Sauron.
Yeah.
Every time he's not on screen, I'm actually kind of upset about it. Mostly that's because I don't connect with most of these characters, and I'll get into that later. But yeah, he's super enjoyable. If there is one reason to watch this show, it's probably Sauron himself.
Yeah, he's doing a great job. It's like a fascinating character, and then watching him become Lord of Gifts was God, just Celebrimbor is such an idiot. Like, he makes me so mad. He's so like bitter about how he hasn't created anything as amazing as what he describes as his predecessors had created, and so he's just like determined to have his own personal glory, and it's completely clouding his judgment. It's very infuriating.
Right.
I think this whole thing is Celebrimbor's fault, to be honest. It's just like Galadriel brought him, but Celebrimbor is just like the embodiment of fault here, in my opinion.
The king of fuck ups. I mean, sort of. I mean, like he is our Oppenheimer, right?
Yeah.
Like he creates the bomb and then hands it over.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Oh gosh. So other things that stand out to me, I'm reserving my favorite for last year, but I've enjoyed some of the other I don't want to call them cameos, but some unexpected, very familiar faces. The one that really caught me off guard that I was not expecting at all is it Shelob? Shelob? You know what I'm talking about? The spider?
Oh, yeah. With
the one that's
Isildur.
trying to eat Isildur?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's trying to use that is Shelob. Same spider that that Gollum tricks Frodo into running into.
That's the same one from Lord of the Rings?
It is 100% supposed to be the same spider.
Wow, that's awesome.
In the book, she is described as a being that has known those lands far longer than Sauron.
Wow.
And like to the extent that like Sauron like respects Shelob and like does not invade like her territory.
Dude, that's
she's that old, she's that evil.
Dude, that's a cool detail. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And also disgusting and terrifying, because that is fun.
Yes.
Anytime that she's on screen, I'm like, no, please move on. God.
That was the I was happy that Isildur and his horse were able to get
Right.
out of that. I
Beric-
wasn't expecting to care too much
Beric
about the
is
horse.
the greatest partner of
Beric,
all time.
greatest.
I've never wanted a horse more than after watching that scene where Beric just like runs through.
Right, what a homie.
What an absolute dog. Well, he's a horse, but you know what I mean.
Oh, no, absolute dog. Dude, my dog would have left my ass behind fast.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
In fact, I would have wanted her to. Just leave me. Just leave me.
Yeah, Beric is the
We're
greatest.
useless in this situation.
Beric is the greatest warrior in Lord of the Rings, bar none. I said it.
Wow. Shadowfax, Gandalf's horse might have something to say about
Well,
that.
you know what? Sorry, Shadowfax. I said what I said.
I said what I said.
But yeah, that was like
Yeah.
really cool, and a sweet moment, you know, having Beric save him. And of course, it's cool too because you know that Isildur is gonna like make it out based on how important he is until later on in the story. But it was cool that there still felt like there were some stakes and that you knew he was gonna make it out, but it still felt like, and it's probably because he encountered the spider that we know is extremely dangerous. So you're just like, oh shit, like what's about to happen here? But so I think it's still kind of cool that they show us a scene where he's in trouble and make it kind of, you know, still a little nerving, even though you kind of know that he's not going to die in that particular moment.
Definitely not. He's still got something important to do before
Yeah.
he gets cut off from the show.
Or he has something important he fails to do, but yeah.
I think what I'm enjoying a lot about this season right now is we're seeing reactions. Like, we're seeing the land and creatures start to awaken from the corruption that Sauron has spread.
Yeah.
Right? Like, as Mordor has been birthed, as these rings are coming into fruition, we're watching creatures come alive, right? I don't think Shelob is necessarily supposed to be, like, part of that, but, like, we saw that one, like, mud serpent attack. We saw the Barrow Wights are up and active. Galadriel said, like, evil has been awakened,
Yeah.
right? And we're watching that everywhere.
Yeah.
Slowly, the corruption spread, right? I really love, like, how we're not seeing, like, you know, Sauron, like, sprinkle little evil, like, all over the place, like, in, like, little cartoony ways. Like, we're just watching, like, the ripples and, like, it's naturally happening.
It's all been dormant for thousands of years, and now it's finally like ready to kind of. That serpent was like, I was not sure what was gonna. I thought it was just like quicksand, and then all of a sudden, I was like, oh shit!
Shame. All of a sudden, there's a monster.
That thing is disgusting. Like I was just, no, I'm going back to Numenor. No, thank you. See you later. Bye. But yeah, the evil in the woods that Galadriel and Elrond and company.
Yeah, the Barrow Wights.
Discover. That was like such a creepy scene. So that was really, really cool. And man, yeah, there's so much happening. Go ahead.
So, like, in that particular episode, Eldest, my favorite, that was awesome to get the Barrow Wights in that episode because it's also the episode that we get Tom Bombadil in. And Tom Bombadillo, big favorite in the Lord of the Rings community. Finally portrayed on screen, even though he doesn't have his blue jacket. I guess we're gonna work up to that. That's fine. When we meet Tom Bombadil in the Fellowship of the Ring in the book, it is the hobbits meet him, and then the hobbits leave, and then the hobbits run into the Barrow Wights, and they are grossly unprepared for that situation. As the Barrow Wights prepare to kill them. And then, of course, Tom Bombadil shows up to save them and banish the Barrow Wights away. So it was neat that in the episode that we get Tom Bombadil, we also get the Barrow Wights, which felt like a reference to the book Fellowship of the Ring. That was neat. I like that little detail. But since I've created my own natural segue here, Tom Bombadil.
Bombadil.
Nick,
Yes.
what'd you think of Tom Bombadil?
Charming, lovely, hilarious, lonely a bit. And I found it actually fascinating that he, the Dark Wizard, right? He mentioned many moons ago the Dark Wizard had come to him, and he kind of helped train the Dark Wizard, I guess. if I'm not mistaken, is kind of what I got from that scene. And so he's kind of like his overall purpose as because he himself is a wizard. So like, right? He's a trainer of wizards, like because like who like
We don't know, to be
do we actually not
honest.
know? Like what's his purpose? Is it to be there and to guide like new wizards to the world and help them control their power, and then but those wizards will then have to decide for themselves if they're good or bad. Like, do you know what I mean?
Right.
So
I can't say what the show has in store for him,
right,
because that's the way they've set him up, right? Like he's kind of like this
trainer,
like,
coach, or something.
Right. For any wizards that are brought into this world, it kind of helps get them on their feet. It sounds like. So Bombadil is probably like the most mysterious character in Lord of the Rings, because very very little is mentioned about him when we meet him.
Okay.
We know from the hobbits that Gandalf knows him, or we know from the hobbits' interaction with Bombadil that Gandalf knows him, and we know that he is the eldest thing in this land. That in his domain, he's the absolute most powerful thing in that domain, but his domain is very small, so he doesn't actually like ever leave it. And yeah, we know he has like some deeper connection to like the Celestials, like out and beyond Middle Earth, but beyond that, yeah, we don't really know a whole heck of a lot about him. And I think that's why people really love him so much, because as you said, he's really charming, but like he's got this like air of like creepy mysticism about him too.
Yeah, it's the unknown.
I think he's just supposed to be nature. I think he's supposed to be nature.
Nice. Yeah, this is the unknown that's really interesting. And speaking of unknown, another segue here. Like, are we dealing with Gandalf here? Like, who is the stranger? Like, is the stranger Gandalf? Is the stranger someone else? Like, there are some conversations online how we're like, not sure, because there's other wizards that the stranger could be technically, right? In Lord of the Rings lore. So, I have a hard time believing that it's not Gandalf, but I don't know. What are your thoughts? What do you think?
So up until this conversation, I have been under 100% the impression that this is Gandalf. However, you have made me realize that the first season really tried to misdirect us on who Sauron was.
Right.
Right. So maybe we're totally off here, and they're doing that same play again, and like he's gonna be like Saruman or something. I don't know. I think it's more likely that he's Gandalf. He feels like he has to be, right? Like everything about him feels like he's supposed to be Gandalf.
Yeah, because like, isn't then the Dark Wizard? Because like, is it possible for the Dark Wizard to be Sauron, or excuse me, Saruman? Or we already established the Dark Wizard's kind of like overall.
It's a good question. I was talking to some of my other friends who are deep in the lore of Lord of the Rings, and I asked, like, is the Dark Wizard a character? Because, like, I'm not familiar with him. And they said the same thing. They were like, I don't know who that is. So I'm not sure if that's a made-up TV character or if this is playing into a bigger conspiracy of the wizards. Because, yeah, you're right. It's interesting that we haven't gotten a name yet for any of them.
Right.
I wonder if... okay. All right, some 3D, 5D chess here, all right? I wonder if the stranger is supposed to be Saruman, right? And Saruman is responsible for bringing this dark wizard into a more gray area state of thinking. I don't know, make him a gray wizard instead of a dark wizard. I don't know. I could see them going down that route. I don't think it's going to be. I think the stranger's Gandalf.
Yeah.
But if they were trying to be tricky about it,
and if
that might be what they're doing.
Yeah, and if you're thinking of like features, like character features, right? Like the stranger, like people are really thinking he's Gandalf for some of the things that he's doing, but also because like similar characteristics, from what Gandalf looks like in Lord of the Rings. So like they made him look like
put respect on the name. It's Sir Ian McKellen.
Son of a bitch. Ian McKellen. The stranger, the actor playing the stranger has characteristics similar characteristics, right? And I think that's done on purpose because, like, we don't know for sure, but we're supposed to, I think, be like, okay, this is probably Gandalf. I think it would make sense. I hope they don't pull a switcheroo because I feel like it would be like unwarranted unless like they really do it well. I don't think there's a reason to try to trick us in this scenario, Like it's cool enough and important enough for us to see like the manifestation of how he becomes Gandalf the Grey, essentially, right? And so I think that's cool enough alone for us to still not have a name, and we're kind of working towards that a little bit more every episode. Anyway.
Also, like, his interactions with the Harfoots, I think, basically guarantee that he's Gandalf.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Right?
Yeah. Especially because, like, in Lord of the Rings, like, he's gotten his immediate... He knows how... He doesn't underestimate hobbits or Harfoots because his first interaction on this in Middle-earth was with the Harfoots. And he knows how brave they are and how... and how... underrated they are because he had this experience when he first landed in Middle Earth and he never forgot it. And so when he knows that he really needs this kind of a characteristic for someone to bring the One Ring to Mordor, he knows exactly who he needs to do it.
Or, a burglar.
A burglar, right.
Man.
So I think that also, like, that's a great point that with his interactions with the Harfoots. Also, speaking of Harfoots, really cool that we kind of got to see where they started, right? With this whole thing.
Yeah, not the Harfoots, but the
Stores.
The other Hobbit-like people who are in the sand.
Stores or stores? I forget how they say it, but
Stores. Yes, thank you for remembering that. Yeah, the Stores.
The Stores, yeah. So, but the Harfoots are descendants of the Stores, so that was like kind of cool. And I imagine that hobbits must be descendants of Harfoots, right? Like down the line. So, yeah. I wonder if
we kind of got a vision of the future there, right? Where the stewards tell, oh my god, I'm blanking on her name, Nori, yeah. About like a sort of prophecy of the father of all the Harfoots, like left the Stour clan to go find like a home that was always. He's talking about the Shire,
right? Right.
To go find the Shire,
yeah.
And Nori tells her, he never found it. Like we're still wandering,
right?
So that is the Shire is apparently like on the horizon. It is coming.
I wonder if Gandalf helps them find the Shire. Right? Because like, how else would they find a place that they know is going to be safe?
Right.
So I wonder
and hidden.
I wonder if he's the one who helps them find the spot. That would be cool.
That seems, now you say that, it seems likely,
right?
Like it's like almost like a thank you for helping him find his way,
right? And then he always knows where they are in case he needs their help again.
In case I need a burglar.
Yeah. So
I'm putting together a team.
The Avengers. Wait, sorry, that's the wrong place. He's the Nick Fury of this story.
Gandalf the Black.
Okay. Now we're just waiting. Let's bring it back. We have to talk about Khazad-dûm, or however you say that, the dwarfs.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
I've always loved the dwarfs and like where they live, like inside the mountain. It's such a cool, the way that they like make those sets look, whether it's CGI or obviously it's mostly CGI, but like it's just so cool. And I really love, I just love all of those characters that we're getting to know, and the Durins of the war and his wife, and it's probably one of my favorite parts of the show. Actually, is anytime we're with the dwarfs. Heartbreaking because like it's just not going to go well for them. Basically, like I think it goes the worst for them. I think out of like most of these. Out of all of the
Numenor might have something to say about
Numenor
that.
Does,
but...
yeah, that's true. Numenor actually is just gonna get completely wrecked, but it's almost more heartbreaking for the dwarves because of like what we come to know and find out later on,
I would agree that it's more heartbreaking for the dwarves, mostly because that's where the better character work has been established. I care nothing about what's happening in Numenor.
That's a great point. Yeah, we don't care. Although
Don't care.
it was cool to see the eagle. Like they did foreshadow the eagle showing up, but I didn't realize that it was going to be a massive eagle. So like when it showed up, I was like, "Oh shit! This is why it's kind of an important symbol because the thing is bigger than my whole body."
Right, it's bigger than my Honda Civic.
It's
like, good lord.
Yeah, it's an eagle that Gandalf would ride across Middle Earth, essentially. So,
because Gandalf has style.
yeah, Gandalf has style. But yeah, that was cool, and it makes sense that Numenor is picking a new leader because it's like everything that happened there with them leaving and then going to battle and half of them dying and then the queen being blind and then the irony of the commander's daughter finding the seeing stone and turning in the queen, basically, that she's got this banned artifact that her and her father have been using for years. It's kind of ironic that the commander's daughter basically is the one who turns in the queen.
If you had to pick a plot line that is your favorite to follow so far, what is it?
I am so interested to see what happens with the dwarves because at the end of this last episode we got, I think it was the last episode, might have been episode 3. We got Sauron. The whole season so far they've been, the elves are really strict about how Sauron never touched the rings. So, and Elrond's like, yes, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have influence over them. But their whole thing was he never touched the rings. He never touched the rings. And then at the end of this episode, we get Sauron specifically touching the rings that he made for the dwarfs. And it's just they were telling us how important it was that he hadn't touched the elven rings. And now we've seen him very aggressively and was touching the dwarven rings and then throwing them in to finish. So it's just to me, I'm man, what is gonna happen with where's this dwarf storyline going once they get their rings? Because it's gotta be it's just gonna be heartbreaking and terrible, because it's another level of interference that Sauron's running with the dwarf. So it's going to be a higher level of interference than what he's running with the elves right now, based on just the interactions he's had with creating each of their rings. So that's kind of that's what I keep thinking of. I'm man, what's going to happen next with the dwarfs?
Yeah, that's a great point as far as the touch goes, right?
Yeah.
We get that great shot of him holding the mithril and then holding the ring itself.
Yeah.
It's really creepy, actually, how long the camera lingers on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Something to look forward to there. For sure. I think for me, I've been enjoying the most probably either the Harfoots, which is not what I would have said in the first season,
right?
or probably Galadriel and Elrond.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I love what's going on between them. I'm kind of over their bickering at this point. But everything that they're doing is really exciting.
Yeah.
They feel they've been on their own little Dungeons and Dragons little journey. It feels a little fellowshipy, right?
Right.
The way that they went off and then they get separated by orcs.
Right.
It feels very fellowshipy, and I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Basically anything that can remind me of Fellowship of the Rings, I'm here for it. And yeah, the fights with the Barrow-wights felt very Dungeons and Dragony and
nice.
Just. I'm all for that storyline.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see where that's going, the confrontation with Sauron, if they even get that far.
Right.
Because we know he's got to create 7 rings for the dwarves,
Mm-hmm.
9 rings for men. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure how he's going to pull off the 9 rings for men yet.
Yeah, because I think he must be with Celebrimbor for a long ass time. Is it going to take Galadriel and Elrond that long to get there? Because he can't. I guess he could make the rings somewhere else. I don't understand. It's going to be really interesting to see. That's a great point. Because he's already been. I feel like he's already been there too long. But evil has, like we said, evil has risen across the lands, and that's keeping any messengers from reaching Celebrimbor. So, man.
Well, we also know that the elves are not the only ones on their way to Celebrimbor's doorstep.
Oh, that's right.
The orcs and Adar are also on their way.
Adar and the orcs are on the way now too. God, yeah, that's gonna be. Celebrimbor is gonna die.
I do love the confusion that's causing too. That Adar's like that Elrond is confused on whether or not like they're working with Sauron or they're working against Sauron.
Right.
Like, no one's really sure of like what the enemy lines are yet.
Yeah, the only person that knows is Sauron.
Yeah, it's all his game.
Like,
right?
it's all his game right now. He's manipulating
game.
everyone. Like, Adar doesn't even know that he's working for Sauron yet. You know, like he thinks
that reminds me.
He thinks he's looking for him, but he's actually working for him. Like, that's the greatest thing about it. You know.
There is a small plot line with the orcs going on that I thought was really interesting. I actually haven't seen anyone really talking about it, so I don't know how people feel about it. The orc family.
Oh, dude! Thank you so much. There's orc babies.
There's an orc baby and an orc mommy.
That's like so weird.
So it caught my eye because I got into an argument with a friend one day about the idea of the orcs, because he was upset that the orcs don't offer more nuance, that they're just evil. They're just bad guys to be slain, and like it's stupid that there are no like ambiguous orcs. To which my argument was like, well, like, yeah, but they're not supposed to be ambiguous. Like, they're supposed to be like the idea of corruption itself, right? Like, this is something that's been fully corrupted. He was upset that there's not like one exception of that. So here we are. It appears that they're going down that route, maybe, or at least like. So if you take getting into orc society,
if you take an orc baby and you put it in an elven city, does the orc baby stop being corrupt?
Ooh, good question. Oh man, nature versus nurture, maybe. Oh god, the age-old question.
The answer is no. Look at Loki.
Yeah, it's true. It's a pretty good instructional guide. Well, hey, maybe he'll become, Lord of everything after that. Right. Sweet upgrade. But yeah, I'm not sure where that's going. But it is interesting that they added like sort of a sympathetic angle for the orcs who don't want to go to war necessarily.
Yeah, like some of them are really like they just want to be left alone in some cases, right? It's very interesting.
Right, like they wanted a home, sort of like the Harfoots, right? They wanted a home, they got the home.
Right.
Now they're good.
Right.
But they are told that they will never be safe so long as Sauron lives.
Man, the wild part too is right. There was almost like total peace until Sauron, right? Like there's just one guy who's just like, you know what? Nah. And then everything is going to shit. What a jerk. Sauron's just a jerk.
Some people just want to watch the world burn.
Yeah. And that some people is Sauron. Man.
Lord of gifts. Lord of television.
Yeah. Oh, God. They dropped the Lord of the Rings line, too, in that scene. It's like, okay. All right.
All right. That's a great time to get into things that we don't like about this show.
There we go. Yeah, let's go with the don't like. You first. There's not a whole lot for me, but that was a little much.
Oh, then you go first, then.
No. You first, please.
All right. Let me get on my high horse here. Yeah. So I think ultimately what I don't like about this show, which is true in season 1, it's true in season 2, none of the characters sound like Tolkien characters. They all speak in ways that I feel like people from this century think people of like the Dark Ages spoke in. But like it's not. It just feels very fan fiction-y the way a lot of the people speak, right? For example, what you just brought up, that whole poem that gets read about being the Lord of the Rings, and it's like, gosh, like Galadriel says it in Fellowship, but like there's like a purpose to it, whereas like this felt so like name droppy and just like fan service-y. There's a lot of fan service-y lines that I do not dig, and I'll get into why I think language is so important for this show in particular. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, like
About the fan service stuff?
yeah, I totally agree. Like it just gives the impression that they're trying a little too hard, with some of that. Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I've enjoyed the show for the most part so far. So like, when there's a couple, when there's a couple,
It's fun.
couple
The show
of
is
those,
fun.
yeah, it's very fun. With a couple of those lines, you're just like, okay, do we have to really like lay it in here? I mean, you just made Sauron the embodiment of an elven god, and then you also had him say like, now we've got him talking about Lord of the Rings and stuff. Like, I'm just like, okay, can we can we lay off a little bit?
What are we, some kind of Suicide Squad?
Oh God. So yeah, I mean, I get, I'm with you there for sure. I'm trying to think of other things that I really don't like though about the show so far, and there's really not a lot for me. Like, it's not really about the show though. It's just like character wise, right? Like the stupidity of Celebrimbor, I can't even say his fucking name, but anyway, is bothers me. But like, that's a good thing. Like, he's doing such a good job that being greedy and after his own glory, that it's annoying me. But no, I think for the most part, there's not like a really whole lot I don't like. It's just a couple of those moments where they're trying a little bit too hard with like the lines. Anything else for you?
I think for me, it ultimately, yeah, for me, it comes down to two things, and like they're kind of two of the same thing, and it's ultimately the writing, but it's the writing for two different reasons. So I think a lot of the character work could stand to be improved, and what I mean by that is, I don't. This is a very plot motivated show, and I don't feel very bonded to most of these characters.
Okay.
Like, for example, like the Numenorians, like I mentioned it earlier. I really don't care at all about what's going on in that part of the world, which is too bad because like when you write it, when you put it all on paper, it sounds fascinating, right? There's a queen trying to prevent a flood-like catastrophe coming into the city. They send their soldiers overseas to stop evil from spreading, right? There is a power struggle going on in the kingdom right now about who should be leading. There's a symbol of justice and leadership that comes to. It all sounds so interesting, and I don't care. I don't think any of the characters are all that likable or interesting.
Yeah.
I think my biggest problem with the show is actually the Numenorians. I just don't care.
Yeah.
And that same complaint can be like kind of found like sprinkled throughout. I think Numenor is the biggest victim of it. But yeah, I feel like we don't get to spend a lot of time with characters just being characters, like having small interactions with each other to either show why we should like this person or why we shouldn't like this person.
Right.
Basically, every time a character is on scene, it's because something big with the plot is happening. And I don't really understand why that is. Because, like, you have presumably 8 hours in this season to tell this story, right? Fellowship gets everything done, plot, characters, all done in, like, what? Like, in the theatrical version, 2 hours, 2.5 hours? Like... And you care about those people. You care about the plot, right? Like, it gets it all done in that short length of a time. Whereas this, like, I don't know why, like, we're not spending more time with people. And
yeah,
I want that.
Yeah, it's
right?
definitely a problem with Numenor for sure. Like, I definitely see your point there. I feel like it's the opposite for the elves. I feel like we're getting a lot more smaller conversation with the elves, and we're getting to know those characters a lot better, right? And so,
which is probably why I care about them the most.
Exactly. So it's a great point about the comparison there on Numenor, and then even just looking at the elves and how much more you care. Same thing with the dwarves. I care much more about the dwarves because they've done a great job of like spending time with those characters. And as you were talking, I thought of two characters we haven't talked about yet, that one of them I really like and one of them I really hate, and that's Arondir and Theo. Theo, of course, being the kid that I hate. I'm just like, can we just, if I never see Theo again, I'll be happy about it. It's just like an annoying teenage boy, you know? It's just like, come on, dude. Like,
they really are not giving that poor. I don't blame the actor at all. They're really just not giving him anything to work with.
Yeah, he doesn't
there.
have much to work with. Arondir is or Arondir is very cool. It's a very, very cool elf warrior. And it's cool that him and Isildur or were, or at least they were together. Now I think Arondir is going off on his own, right? So anyway, wanted to bring them up real quick. We hadn't talked about them.
No, that's true. Yeah, we I think we talked about everyone except them. We never talked about the Treants either. Also showing up, which was since you brought up Arondir, that was a really cool scene.
Yep.
His conversation. That's what I'm talking about. Those kinds of conversations
Right.
that really endeared me to him. Where he says he is asked, "Have you ever taken axe to tree?" And he doesn't lie to her.
Right.
He's like, I have, but it was never like in attack. It was never,
Right.
to hurt,
Right.
right? Your kind. Like that's the kind of conversation I mean, where that reveals something about the character, right? That was a neat moment. I have one other point I want to make about the writing of this show. I think it's the most important thing. Okay. So the characters don't sound like Tolkien characters.
Mm-hmm.
And in many other franchises, that probably doesn't matter. This franchise is different, though. And I think it's because of Tolkien's personal philosophies. Like, there's so much that he poured into the importance of language before he ever actually started writing the stories. And I think ignoring the importance of language is a detriment of this show. And I think there's a reason why, like, this show will probably never hit the same highs as that original trilogy, which, uses so much of like that Tolkienian dialogue. And language is important in the story, and there are people in the writer's room who know that, right? For example, Tom Bombadil.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, he talks to the stranger, and the stranger talks about how the tree ate him because he just wanted the branch. And Tom Bombadil says, well, did you ask him? That was actually a very Tolkienian line. Yeah. Did you ask him? Because Tolkien's all about that. Like, if you go back in the original language is so important throughout the entire story. The elfin riddle into Catholic Dur, right? Speak, friend, and pass, right? Like, there's little instances of the importance of language throughout the entire story because it is so important. Yeah. And I think there are people who sort of recognize that.
Nice.
But it's definitely not a priority in the storytelling.
That was a great explanation. Nicely done.
Thank you. I love the Tolkien language, man.
Hell yeah.
Here to represent nerds.
Hell yeah. Joe has your back.
I got your back. So I guess that leaves us to our expectations or our predictions. What are you hoping for?
Just would love to finally find out who the stranger is and get confirmation on that. Would be a big thing, I think. And finding out that he's been helping Sauron seems like a pretty big thing to look forward to. That'd be tragic for him once he realizes what he's done. Those are just some kind of things that stand out.
I wonder if that's going to be tragic for him. I wonder if, like, his vanity and his pursuit of perfection, I wonder if he'll even care once he eventually knows.
Interesting.
When the Ring of Power actually does get created, will that be a moment of glory for Celebrimbor?
Interesting.
Or will that be a moment of huge regret and horror? I don't know. I'm excited though. I think my one thing, my one prediction for the season is we will not see the 9 Rings of Power this season. Maybe like, I think this will end with the Dwarven rings have been created, are like all done, right? And they've all been created, and Sauron is now moving on from the elves and the dwarves, and he's working his way into like the hearts of men.
Interesting.
I think that's ultimately where this is going to end.
All right.
In this season, anyway.
I'm excited for the next 4 episodes.
It's exciting. Yeah. But that will be for another episode when we come back and when we review all of this. But if you're curious about our thoughts in the meantime, you can, of course, catch us on social media. Nick, where can the people find us?
Guys, we are on Threads, talking weekly and daily, of course, about the Rings of Power and then anything else that's kind of going on in the TV and movie business. We find us on YouTube, of course. Hit subscribe, please. And we're on Instagram as well. But really, Threads, YouTube are the two main spots. And then, of course, we are on your favorite podcast network wherever you listen to podcasts. So go ahead and give us a follow there. And until next time,
may the review be with you.
Peace.